Do Seventh-day Adventists really major in minors? Well, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, and I have been accused of that and heard that for several years. And what does that mean? What does it mean to major in minors? Probably means different things to different people, but what I have thought about it is that it means that we like to argue about disputable doctrines. Well, what are disputable doctrines? Well, in Christianity, of course, the big one is the Sabbath day, right? That's a disputable doctrine. It's something that different Christians disagree on. The state of the dead is obviously another disputable doctrine. Baptism, whether or not it's by immersion or sprinkling, whether or not it's done at the age that a person is making the decision themselves, like a 11 or 12-year-old, or if it is done as a child, that is a disputable doctrine. And it seems that Adventists are accused of majoring in minors. We like to talk about those disputable doctrines. For good or for bad, it seems that there's some truth to that. Adventists do tend to argue about disputable doctrines. Within the Adventist church, we see that there are disputable doctrines that are disputable within our denomination. That is, that some Adventists believe one way, other Adventists believe another way, unlike the Sabbath, for example. All Seventh-day Adventists believe that seventh day is Sabbath. That's why they are Seventh-day Adventists. I think it's pretty safe to say that all or nearly all believe the same on the state of the dead. All or nearly all believe the same about immersion of baptism. However, we get into some doctrines, like vegetarianism, for example, that Adventists disagree with each other. So within the Adventist church, that would be a disputable doctrine. We also get into other lifestyle issues, such as the way we dress and the way we display things like jewelry, also the way we celebrate holidays, whether or not we're going to have a Christmas tree or not, whether or not we should celebrate Halloween. Some of these other things are very disputable doctrines, and just like Adventists like to argue with other Christians about the Sabbath or the state of the dead, it seems that some Adventists really like to argue with each other over disputable doctrines within the church. Like one Adventist telling another one that they should not celebrate Christmas, or one Adventist telling another one that they should not wear jewelry, or that they should not eat meat. Whatever the doctrine is, pick it. Choose your favorite disputable doctrine. And there are certain people, a certain group of people within the church that like to argue about disputable doctrines. Now, there are other people in the church that like the peace, and they just refuse to be drawn into those arguments. Now, those that like to talk about disputable doctrines will say those that like the peace are bad people because they're not standing up for certain standards. This is a real issue within the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and it is something that I think isn't going to go away, but it certainly harms church growth, because it can make, and unfortunately often makes, a local church a dysfunctional church. And now think about a dysfunctional family. For example, maybe one of the parents is an alcoholic or drug addict, and that creates all types of dysfunction within that family. Or maybe one of the parents has a mental illness like bipolar or schizophrenia, refuses to take their medication or keeps going off their medication, and that causes a lot of dysfunction in the family. Now, if you had the choice to be adopted into a family, would you choose to be adopted into a dysfunctional family? Say dad has schizophrenia and he won't take his medication. Or would you choose to be adopted into a functional family? Well, early in grad school, when I was studying to get my master's degree in marriage and family therapy, one of the first things we were taught is that dysfunction causes rigidness, and rigidness causes dysfunction. Healthy families are families that are flexible. The same is going to translate to the church. When we are rigid, we are going to create an unhealthy environment. When we are flexible, we create a healthy environment. Now, how much flexibility should we have? There's not an answer to that. And I think to a certain degree it has to be determined by the society that we are in. Certain societies are going to permit more flexibility than other societies. But how would you react if people came to your church dressed a certain way? How would you react if people brought certain food items to potluck? Like some churches will say absolutely no meat is permitted to be brought to potluck. Well, a church that's a little more flexible might say we're going to label dishes, put a little, paper label out in front of the dish that says vegetarian, vegan, meat, so that people know. And then if you want to bring meat to church, you bring meat. We're just going to label it so that everybody knows what it is. Well, some churches would freak out and never allow such a thing. Are we trying to control other people's consciences? Because you know what Seventh-day Adventists are really afraid of, and we have reason to be, that there's going to be a national Sunday law passed. And people that attend church on Sunday are going to force Seventh-day Adventists to attend church on Sunday. And we are going to lose our liberty of conscience or face some pretty dire consequences. But aren't we doing the same thing to people when we tell them that they have to be vegetarian? They can't bring chicken to potluck. I mean, myself, I love vegetarian potluck. And, I really wouldn't want to see vegetarian or beef ribs in the potluck table. But that's me. And I also feel that I need to respect other people and give them the right to be different than me. Because there's only one thing that I'm 100% sure that I know. I have no doubt in my mind. And I think I can convince you of it. I am so sure of it. There's one thing that I know. I'm 100% sure of it. And I'm almost 100% sure that I can convince you of it. And that is that I am not God. No matter how much you think of me, no matter how intelligent you think I am, no matter how loving you think that I am not God. And so I cannot dictate the conscience of other people. In fact, I have trouble with my own, so that's why I need to seek the direction of God by studying the Bible and praying. Do Seventh-day Adventists major in minors? A lot of them do. But there are a significant number that just want the peace. It's up to each church. Are we going to be a functional church or are we going to be a dysfunctional church? And if you belong to a dysfunctional church, what can you do about it? Well, send me a private message on that, and we'll start that conversation between us.